Hey, how we doing? Today I'm going to cut some of my DIY guitar kit files on my CNC. If you've been following along, there's a whole series where I designed some 3D CNC files that I'm selling over newperspectivemusic.com, but then I'm also selling parts that I pre-cut and just roughly finished so people can buy those and finish the guitars that way. I'm trying to make a little bit of something for everybody. So today I'm going to make a couple bodies that I'm going to stock in the store. I'm using, for one of them, I'm going to use this piece of, it's an oak from an old church pew, and you can see it's got a little bit of checking on it, some holes in it and stuff, but I think it looks pretty cool. I had already cut one of the first ones from this before that I'm going to finish on the channel. And then I also have these oak butcher block tables from a local music venue that when they redid their room, they threw away these tables. So these are kind of cool. I've heard a lot of music. So let's go ahead and talk about how I'm going to set it up on the CNC. I'm going to show you the CNC files and how I set those up, and we'll go. For this whole file, I only need 2 end mills. I need a 1/4 inch straight end mill and a 1/4 inch ball nose end mill for the finishing tool paths. However, the block of wood I'm cutting is 1.5 inches thick, so this end mill is a little bit short for that. I can kind of choke up on it a little bit and probably cut all the way through my block with it, but I do have a longer one I'm going to use to cut just to be on the safe side. My final profile pass. It's exactly 1.5 inches sticking out, so that means if I were to cut through the wood with this on my last pass, this nut would be rubbing up against the wood and burning it and making a mess of things. So that is just not deep enough to do my final cut. Of course, I could just go 3/4 of an inch through on one side and then 3/4 of an inch on the other side, but I digress. You'll see when I set up a wasteboard, I level it after I put a new one down, and I use them up quite a bit because I drill all sorts of holes in them, which we'll talk about later. But one of the things I do when I set up a new wasteboard is I just take a V-bit and I draw a 2-inch grid, and it gives me these lines to square off to, so I can make sure my piece of wood is straight by just measuring to this line. I can see that's 7/8 there and 7/8 there. So this MDF might not be straight to the CNC, but these lines are straight to the CNC. I'm fortunate enough to have one of these Auto Z touch plate finders, so it makes getting my end mill set to the height of the work very easy. If you don't have one of these, you have to do it manually. You can use a little piece of paper. You just go down the piece of paper and go until you can't pull the paper out anymore. Okay, so my CNC machine is all set to cut. Let's talk about the file and what I'm going to do. Okay, here at the laptop I have opened up my Vectric CNC file that is included in the kit, and if you don't use Aspire by Vectric, I've also included 3D models and DXFs and all that stuff, and so you could use whatever software you use and set it up. Unfortunately, I can't teach you how to use other CNC software because I only know this stuff, but so I'll show you how I do it here, and I think a lot of it will sort of translate to whatever you're doing. So I basically have a bunch of lines that I cut that are 2-dimensional, and then I have a 3D model. I can click to this 3D tab view and I can see this 3D model of this body shape with this bevel that I've created. And so what I want to do is cut all that out, obviously. And you'll also notice I have these 3 holes here that are guides to help me align my work when I flip it upside down. And I talked about this in other videos. I always do them sort of, quote, randomly, so I can't, if I did them all mathematically, I could accidentally put the wood the wrong way. This way it only lines up right one way. You'll see when we get to it. So I want to cut my guides. I'm just cutting, a little over a 1/4 inch deep using my 1/4 inch end mill. And I need to do a roughing tool pass. And what this does is gets the, here I'll show you. It sort of gets some of the waste material away before I do my 3D finishing. And so it just takes some extra wood away. And then I need to do my finishing tool path, and there's the way that I sent the files, like when you download the file, doesn't have this center line, and so what it does is it does a finishing tool path over the whole thing. But what I did is I created the center line by simply using this offset tool. I went 1.5 inches in from the edge. So now I'm only going to cut in between these 2 lines just to save a little bit of time, and it might give me a little bit more sanding because of that. But it'll save some more finish potentially. I'm just going to try it right now and we'll see how it works. So I'm running my 1/4 inch ball nose between these 2 lines, and I'm doing a 45-degree angle. I like to not go straight across the wood. I feel like if I go at a 45-degree angle, it's less likely to cause a chip out and stuff. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So there we go. That's how much I cut. I didn't waste my time running my end mill over all this, which is going to stay flat. And you can see through my model that I'm not missing anything. All the dark parts are the parts that need to be cut. So all that's well and good. And then I also have my pickup holes that I have to cut, which they're set to cut at 3/4 of an inch deep. You might need to cut them a little bit deeper if you have, there's certain styles of humbuckers that have taller parts to them. I have the holes for my controls, and I have my neck pocket, which is set to 0.65 inches deep. Depending on how you like to set up your guitar, you might need to go a little deeper, or you might need to add a little bit of a shimmer and angle, depending upon the type of bridge you use, but that's a good place to start. So that's all this side, and I also had those guides I mentioned. And so now when I flip it over, I'm going to drill those guide holes again, a mirrored version of them, into my wasteboard, and then I'm going to use little dowels. I actually use little pieces of broken pencil to line those up. So now I know that my board is completely lined up with the other side and everything's going to be straight. And I have a roughing tool path here again to just clear away a little bit of excess wood, and then I did the same thing with my finishing tool path. Instead of running the end mill all the way across, I created a shape that covers all the areas that I need to 3D finish, and we can see what that looks like there. And then I have my cavity pocket. I have the outer part because I want to recess my cover, and then I have the inner cavity part that goes all the way through. And then of course I have I put the string ferrules there. If you're not going to use a neck plate, you're going to use some ferrules. There's some holes there for that. And then of course I have my final profile, and you'll see I have some tabs there so it won't fly off the work. Now we can also talk about the order that we do things, and so what I try to do is minimize tool changes. So I group them. So I have I do all of my, on the top I can do all of my 1/4 inch stuff first, and then I have to do my ball nose end mill second, the finishing one. So I just group them all, so I do all of these together as one session, and then I do this as my second session, and then I flip it over and I switch back to my 1/4 inch end mill to put my marks in and to do my roughing. And then I do my finished tool path with my ball nose, so I've got to change there, and then I go back to my end mill because I don't want to cut my final profile out until everything else is done. I want to do that last. So one extra change on this side of going back and forth, but we'll do them as we do them. Let's start cutting. I use my Avid CNC, and I saved all those as tool paths, and that runs on Mach 4. So here you can see I'm going to open my G code, and the way I always save my files is I number them, and then I put what the why did I write hum? It makes me wonder if I did it all. We'll open it, and then I put the size of the cutter. 2.5 is in 0.25, and we'll open up this file. And we see there it is. There's my roughing tool path. There's my cavity holes, the pickup holes, my neck holes. All the 1/4 inch end mill stuff is going to happen in one fell swoop. Everything's ready to go on the CNC machine. I'm going to turn on my fan here. It's going to get too noisy to talk in a second. Got a little air hose to suck up some sawdust. And I hit start. I hope you enjoy watching my channel, and you may have noticed it's a little bit different than a lot of them out there because I don't stop in the middle here to try to sell you like a food subscription or a mattress or anything like that, and I'm really proud of that. And one of the reasons I don't is because I have support over at patreon.com/TimSway, and the main reason is that I'm not a YouTuber. I actually make things for a living and sell them. I make guitars, guitar parts, all the things that I show here, and I sell them over at newperspectivesmusic.com, and I make a lot of the tools that I use to make guitars and other things, that I sell those at squaretools.com. So if you appreciate the fact that I continue to take my time to make this content instead of just focusing on making a better business, one of the ways you can help keep me doing that without having to resort to stopping to sell you, listening services for books or whatever, is to support the work that I do there, or over at patreon.com/TimSway. I'd appreciate it if you have the means. Okay, that's enough shameless self-promotion. Now we'll get back to the CNC cutting, and here you can see all of the two-dimensional cuts that I was talking about happening in fast motion, and then I just switched to that ball nose end mill to do the finishing tool passes. And the ball nose will give a smoother sort of surface than that square cut end mill over curves. Nice, so that saved a few minutes doing it that way. Not a ton of time. Now I'm going to unscrew it and flip it upside down. The next thing you would need to do is level your end mill, put your end mill back in, and level it to the wasteboard, and then drill your holes for those guides that we talked about into your wasteboard. But I don't have to do that because I've already made a couple of these, and you can see these big orange circles here. Those are the holes that I need to use. So I grab my dowels, which are, you could use whatever size you have laying around. You could change the hole size in the file, but I have it set to the dimension of a broken pencil. I think it's this one here. And I use them over and over again. I don't waste them. And now because these are in a random shape, I can't accidentally twist this around and put it on the wrong way or something. It has to go like this. And I can just sort of line them up. There we go. And now I know that my two sides are going to line up. And do a roughing tool pass first before I put the ball nose back in for the finish. There are other ways to do this flip and have it be aligned, like by making fences and etc., but I find this to be the safest way because I could still put it on against a fence that's built onto the table but facing the wrong direction. And there you have it. There are a few little tabs on the edge that keep the wood from flying off the CNC machine as it gets cut out, and this is the easiest way to just clean those off. And here's one of the necks I made in the last video, and you can see it fits perfectly into that pocket. And there you go. There's your body. Now, like I said, this one is going to go up in my store, and so there's a couple things I'll do before I put it there. I'm just going to basically rough sand this down a little bit to about 120 grit. I'm not going to drill any holes in it, and maybe I'll fill these holes in with a little bit of epoxy, but so then the rest of it is going to be up to you, to mount the neck and all that stuff, mount your bridge and all that, and I'm going to put up videos showing how I do all that. But the one thing I will do for you is drill holes for your wires. So you're going to have to drill a hole for a ground from where you end up putting your bridge, which you can do with normal drills, but you do need this sort of long drill bit. You could try to go like this into the cavity from both of these, but it's a little risky doing it from this one. So what I'm going to do, and what a lot of people do, is just drill a hole straight through like that, so we can run the wires from this pickup into this cavity and then run them both through there. I'm going to go just a little bit wider for this one because you're going to have to. You can see that hole now connects into my cavity back here, and that's just to save you a little bit of grief. This one had a couple holes I wanted to fill in. I just used CA glue and sand it to 120, and it's ready to go for whoever buys it to finish, sanding it and finishing it the way they would like to see it. This will go up into the web store New Perspectives Music, as well as I made another one here with some P90 holes in it, and this is from the Church Pew Oak. And then I also made just a block with the holes cut out for people that want to make their own shapes. So, I'm trying to make this kit as inclusive as possible. And now the other thing you'll notice too, like if you're working from CNC and you're not comfortable with all of the 3D stuff on the CNC, you could do all of this with a 1/4" end mill and just not do the 3D parts. You could just open up the DXF files and whatever software you're using, cut those pockets to the depths that are mentioned in the pamphlet that comes with it, and then do all the 3D shaping by hand, like the old-fashioned way. That's how I actually started doing it before I got more involved in experience with CNC woodworking. So I hope you dig this, and now that we've made all the parts that are in the CNC files, I'm going to start actually making guitars with them to show you the rest of the steps. Thanks a lot for watching, and be good.